Last year, at the end of the year, my girlfriend got me this pin, which is the 2020 pin for Happy New Year's. You know, we all thought it was going to be a great year. Yeah. What's going on, Mad Maniacs, and welcome back to Mad About Disney. Isn't this thing cool? Leah got it for me for Christmas. 2020 has been an awful year. Awful. For so many reasons, whether it's social issues, COVID, murder hornets, I don't know. We've got a lot of bad stuff going on. And today we've got a lot more bad stuff because today we'll be counting down the top 10 worst movies that I saw this year. I'm also going to be doing a top 10 best movies I saw this year. I'll probably be posting them both very close to each other, so if you see one, go check out the other. Now, I want to start this by saying that obviously I haven't seen every movie this year. In fact, according to this list, I've seen 59 movies that came out in 2020, which is quite a lot, but it's not all of them. So if you saw a particularly bad movie that didn't make the list, drop it down in the comments. I'd also like to say that I go into almost every movie experience I seek out hoping that it's a good movie. I don't intentionally watch bad movies very often, which means that some of these movies may not be awful, but more just disappointing based on the expectations I have. And before we get going, I'm going to run through a quick honorable mentions list of number 15 through 11 that were barely passable enough to not make this list. At number 15, we have Safety, a Disney Plus original with some iffy acting, and probably it was a little bit too long. At number 14, we have Roald Dahl's The Witches, a remaking of a classic movie from a few decades ago that it was pretty bad. I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it really at all. At number 13, we have Project Power, a Netflix original that would have been much better as a miniseries because they crammed way too much into this runtime. At number 12, we have Hillbilly Elegy, a movie that jumps around way too much and never really develops any of its characters to make them likable really even at all, which is a disappointment because people thought it might be an Oscar potential for multiple categories. And at number 11 is The Christmas Chronicles Part 2. I didn't really like the first one, but this one was definitely worse in almost every way except a few minor details. The villain was very unlikable, but not in a good sort of way. Overall, just not the best. And with that, we'll get right into our list. At number 10, which is The Prom. The Prom is a Netflix original movie that came out in November, I think, sometime. Maybe it was December. No, it was December. I think it came out earlier this month. I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, so it came out earlier this month. And actually, I didn't hate this movie, and I didn't dislike it for a lot of the reasons people might think. I actually thought that the message was great, and the storyline about the two girls was great. I think the characters played by James Corden, who I hate, which that contributed to my disliking of this movie, as well as Meryl Streep, that group, the group of Broadway stars, it felt totally unnecessary. It took me out of the heart of the movie. It felt pretty disingenuous to me. Some of the performances I had a bit of a problem with. And overall, it was a 2-hour movie that probably I would have preferred an hour-and-a-half version of the same thing, but with more focus on the two girls, Emma, and I'm blanking on the other girl's name. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. Number 9 is The Midnight Sky, starring George Clooney. This came out on December 23rd on Netflix. I believe it's technically a Netflix original. I don't know if it originally planned for a theatrical release, but I can sum this up in one sentence. It's just boring. For me, it was boring. I was bored. I was totally disinterested in this movie. I did not care really at all about what was going on. I even stopped halfway through to watch Interstellar, which is a better space movie because I was just so bored by this. At number 8 is Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. It's another Will Ferrell comedy, which are totally hit or miss. I personally really like Will Ferrell. That isn't why I dislike this movie. I love Step Brothers. I love Talladega Nights. I think that's an underrated one. But this one, it just didn't work for me in the right way. I don't think it was totally awful. I think it definitely has some good moments. Ya Ya Ding Dong is actually kind of a catchy song. I mean, I haven't listened to it since the movie came out, but it's not awful, but it's pretty bad in about every way that a Will Ferrell comedy can be normally bad. At number 7 is Irresistible, a comedy, well, it's more of a political comedy starring Steve Carell and Rose Byrne. I think Byrne? B-Y-R-N-E. So I apologize. I don't know how to say her last name. But this was another, I just didn't get it. I thought that the characters were kind of all unlikable in their own ways. It's just another boring movie, and that's what I really hate, because at least a bad movie like The Room, which is the notorious worst movie of all time, is enjoyable because it's so bad. A boring movie is just boring. At number 6 is The Lovebirds, which is a Netflix original comedy murder mystery sort of movie that came out way earlier in the year. I believe I watched it during those first few months of quarantine, so probably March or April, somewhere in there. I don't know, this year kind of blends together. But my biggest issue with this film was how dumb some of the main characters were and how poor choices they made sometimes. It was frustrating. It made me not really like them. I actually think both of the actors that played the main characters are good actors. It just didn't work for me. They made the writing. It was the writing. I apologize if you enjoyed this movie. Good for you, and I'm happy you did. Genuinely, I did. But when characters make stupid choice after stupid choice, it starts to pull me out of the movie a little bit. At number 5 is Trolls World Tour, and while this isn't the lowest animated movie on my list, it is one of the lowest animated movie on my list in a year that we got a lot of good animation. It's not for me. That's the summary of it. It's a movie that's so clearly intended for kids, and personally, it angers me a little bit because this movie is the sort of movie that people use as an argument as to why animation is just for kids when it shouldn't be. And movies on my top 10 list, you will see why animation is for everyone and should be for everyone. But this movie, it's just Infinity War, but with guitar strings. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. It's colorful and energetic for kids, and it's not my thing at all. Number 4 is Vampires vs. the Bronx. I watched this one as part of my Halloween marathon this year. I watched a whole bunch of Halloween related movies. This was new this year, and I just didn't like it. I thought it was super cheesy, and the acting wasn't really great, and it wasn't trying to be that. It was trying to be a good movie with a good message, and ultimately the message was good, but I couldn't get past the cheese sometimes. Number 3, this is where it gets really bad. Artemis Fowl. Yeah, we all talked about Artemis Fowl. I made a video on it if you guys want to see my full thoughts. But this is just bad in every way. It feels like a whole movie leading up to set up a sequel, and there's not going to be a sequel because this was totally poorly received. I'm not the only one that didn't like this movie. It felt like a waste of money on a ton of CGI, and it was just a train wreck. And unfortunately, the kid who played Artemis Fowl, it was his first role. He didn't do the best job, and I feel bad for him. I hope he still has a career in the future that he can get out of this, but unfortunately this wasn't it. At number 2 is Scoob, the lowest animated movie on this list. I'm sorry. Okay, I wasn't a Scooby-Doo kid, alright? I didn't grow up on Scooby-Doo, I should say that up front. But this movie still made me angry and frustrated at how convoluted it was. The fact that, this isn't really a spoiler, but the fact that the characters were split up for almost the whole time felt like the opposite of what Scooby-Doo was all about. They did some weird stuff with Scoob's character and Shaggy's character that I didn't really like, and it had no genre to fall in. It was a superhero movie and a Greek mythology movie, and I don't even know. It was a mess. I was so confused, and you shouldn't be in a movie that is meant for kids. I don't even know what this was. And that's why it's my second lowest of the year. And my lowest movie of the year, the worst movie I saw this year, the only movie this year I think I gave a ½ star, which is the lowest possible rating you can give on Letterboxd, is The Wrong Missy, a Netflix original comedy. This movie stars David Spade and Lauren Lapkus, I think her name is. And it was the only movie this year I didn't finish. I don't turn movies off very often, and you may say that it's unfair of me to rate this so lowly if I didn't see through the end of the movie, but I don't care. This movie was awful for one main reason, and that was that Missy, the character, was so annoying that I couldn't watch it anymore. I just couldn't watch it anymore. The premise, it's fine. It's a romantic comedy. Netflix has been pumping these things out for 3-4 years now. It's whatever. They all suck, most of them at least. But this one, they just made the key to a romantic comedy. And my girlfriend Leah will tell you this because she watches an infinite amount of Hallmark movies every Christmas season. And the key is that the two main characters are likable. This was not the case in this movie. I didn't really like David Spade's character that much, but it was beyond comparison with Missy, the character Missy, who was so annoying that I physically could not bear to watch the entire movie. Sorry if I got a little angry there for a second, but that's my list of the top 10 worst movies of the year. Technically, I guess this was my top 15 worst movies of the year because I did some honorable mentions, but there were a lot of good movies to come out this year, so if you haven't already, go check out my best video. If you watched this one right when it came out, there's a chance that the other one isn't out yet. I don't even know what order I'm posting them in yet, but whatever. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting my channel this entire year. Let me know what bad movies you saw this year, and with that, I will see all of you Mad Maniacs in the next video.